Welcome to Your Family Dog, the podcast where we celebrate the special bond between families and their canine companions. Whether you're a parent, grandparent, considering bringing a furry friend into your family, this show is for you. Each episode, we dive into topics that matter: training tips, health advice, the newest research, heartwarming stories, and expert interviews, both canine and human. Our goal is helping families and dogs grow up together, one episode at a time. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back to the Your Family Dog podcast. I'm joined today by Peggy Rew. She has been on the podcast before, and today we're going to talk about senior dog adoption because it's something that's near and dear to Peggy's heart. It's near and dear to my heart. Those older dogs are just magic. And so, with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Peggy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And yes, it's a topic that doesn't get talked about a lot because people are always looking at that shiny new puppy. And I would love to have a little bouncy little dachshund in my house, but then I think about the potty training and the chewing and the whatever. But my husband and I started adopting seniors back in I think it was 93. And it was a fluke because we're pet sitters. We've been pet nannies for over 40 years. And a neighbor's friend was going to ship her dog to Texas to live with her daughter, but the airlines didn't want to ship the dog in the summer. So she had asked us if we would board him for 4 months and then she would ship him away. Well, by the time it was time to go, the daughter said she didn't want the dog. And so the lady said, just take him to the pound. And my husband said, over my dead body. So we kept him and we had him for 4.5 years. So since then we're on our seventh, and they can last 4 years, they can last 2 years, they can last whatever, but we take them for whatever we have. We offer them a warm bed, a calm house with cats, which sounds surprising, but we've always had at least 3 cats. Every one of them have been so accepting, even though there's always a question. We don't know if it likes cats. Well, then we just make things happen. We have a very magical aura about our house, and with pet sitting, with whatever, but senior adoption, a lot of times you will find seniors at the shelters. And one last year made me so sad. The dog had house training issues. It barked. It had skin issues. It was 14 and it looked awful. And I went to the front counter and I said, "Why are you keeping this dog alive? You need to be humane and put it down." And they just said, "Well, whatever." They loved to tug on heartstrings, and yet it's not that great of a choice for the dog. The dog sometimes needs to go. And I consider myself the Kevorkian of pets because the most humane thing we have to offer an animal in distress is to let it cross over Rainbow Bridge. But a lot of times they still have a lot of life and they've been orphaned, abandoned for some reason. Most of the time now, senior people are going into assisted living. They can't have the pet because they can't take care of it. Or they go to live with a relative that is allergic to dogs. We have had every excuse in the book of the pet that we've adopted, and yet we have had the most magical dogs in our house. And like I said, they all come with their issues, but we work through it, and it gives us so much joy to see an old dog like one of them that we just love. We got her at an adoption event from one of the rescues. She was a Scottish deerhound of all things, which nobody knows how she got here in Reno, Nevada, but she was so tiny. She's related to the Greyhound family. She was tall, skinny, and 36 pounds. And she was so funny because we tried to fatten her up for 4 years, and she didn't want to be fat. She wanted to be a runway model, but she was very timid, very shy, very quiet, never heard a bark out of her. But at night, when we'd let her out in the backyard, she would run around like she was in a rodeo. She would buck her feet, and jump, and tail wag. And she was just an amazing dog. It was like she was free. And her story was that her mom went into the hospital and the neighbor was taking care of her. And so the neighbor was taking her back and forth to daycare, and the woman died, and the woman just left her at the daycare. And luckily, that daycare was part of a rescue. And so that's how I found her. And it just, it floors me that there was a human related to this situation that could have made a difference. But luckily, Kuzi Q was, taken into the rescue, and we found her. And we have just been so lucky. I mean, they all maybe have had something that they have passed from, but at least we gave them 2 to 4 years of an amazing life. And with our new one, he may last longer because he's a miniature dachshund, and he is just so healthy, and so he's just amazing. We we're probably pretty pathetic when it comes to our adoptions, but we love them.
So I often think, well, that sweet human did do something, right? She got the dog to a place where a rescue could pick them up. She took care of a dog that wasn't hers,
Yeah.
and maybe that she knew she couldn't adopt, right? When people think in terms of senior dog adoption, I mean, I've adopted a 5-year-old dog who sadly we lost to cancer in 3 years. I don't consider a 5-year-old dog a senior. I consider a 5-year-old dog like a basic, like,
Teenager.
it's an adult dog. So um sometimes when I talk to families about, like, hey, you might want to think about an older dog, I get a lot of pushback and resistance about, oh, but then we're going to have to deal with death and dying and all the expense and blah, blah, blah. And I think to myself, okay, well, all of that can happen with a puppy, with a 2-year-old dog. I have lost a female Doberman at 3 to cancer. The reality is that we don't, just because we get something young doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to have a long life expectancy. So when people are looking at senior dogs, I would assume that my experience has been that they run the full gamut the same way puppies do, that some of them are really outgoing and like a lot of activity and love kids and are super social and want to do all the things. Others are like, hey, I'd really like a quiet household where things are a little more predictable. Maybe hearing and vision isn't so great. Maybe they have some osteoarthritis issues. They don't really want to do a bunch of stairs. They don't want to go on a 6-mile hike. Can you speak a little bit to that and how to help families navigate what might be a good choice for their family?
Well, it depends on their activity level. If they want to do hiking, then maybe look for something sturdy. Even though Kuzi, this Scottish Deerhound, loved to hike with my husband, um, they need to find one that connects. Uh, because a lot of times, if they're in a shelter, they're going to be aloof. They're going to be disconnected. They're going to be thinking that their life is over. So it's do a checklist of what do you expect from a dog, what size dog fits in your house, because so many times here we get big dogs that people shouldn't have gotten because it was so cute as a puppy. but it's now 116 pounds and it doesn't fit in a two-bedroom apartment. So a checklist for anything in your life that you're going to get, a car, a house, a pet, is wonderful. Do you Are you going to keep up on vaccines? Do you have access to discounted vaccines? Here we have a rescue that exists because they run a discount clinic in like 5 different pet food stores in town, and they're here every Thursday or Saturday. You can find them somewhere. So, what is your limit on what you can spend? What kind of pet food are you going to feed? What is your activity level? Um, do you have little kids? So, a Great Dane may not be the right choice. It's just it's being a little bit more open-minded to what is the expectation of the family. And a senior dog now, I don't know. I always go with the lucky number 7 and up are the seniors. Go and see go to a meet and greet, like the Chihuahua
Right.
rescue that I've talked to before. She
Well,
has meet and greets.
that's what I was going to say. Like a 7-year-old Chihuahua is brand new. A
Yeah,
7-year-old Irish setter, pretty new.
pretty
A
new.
7-year-old Doberman, geriatric. So it's just a 7-year-old husky, brand new, right? Finally starting to slow down a little bit. So I think that sometimes people go, oh, well, that dog is 7 or 8 or 10. I will tell you, 10-year-old dogs are like the world's best kept secret. They're like
Yeah.
a pair of jeans that always make your butt look good. Like
Mm.
when you get a adult dog that is social, isn't a big resource guarder, doesn't have dog directed aggression, doesn't have cat directed aggression, isn't reactive. Like that dog is magic coming into a family because the kids can play ball with it right away. You don't have to worry about all the little things that happen. And this is really where rescue and sheltering can really get to know the dogs in their care and really campaign them as this would be a great dog for a retired couple that the grandkids come over and play 3 times a week, right? So maybe the dog doesn't want to live in the hubbubaloo of 3.2 children, but having kids come over and play ball and take them for a walk and teach them tricks is totally that dog's jive. Like they're like, this is great. I love this. Um, Likewise, some dogs are raised by someone who's elderly, who maybe it's been a traumatic and depressing situation for the dog. And it might take a whole year of living with that dog for that dog to decompress and to start to not be depressed and to really start to get to know who they are. I know I've seen that in all 3 seniors that I've adopted. I've adopted, multiple senior dogs, often as owner surrenders. And the dogs are just sad, right? They've lost their long-term family and they're a little lost. And suddenly, they're living with this zany dog trainer who has entirely too many rules that are different than the rules they grew up with. So
Mhm.
if there were I know people talk about the 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. I actually think it's closer to 18 months. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I do love that the saying at least slows people down a little bit, but really getting to know, okay, what is this dog's favorite treat? What is their favorite activity to do? What is their least favorite treat? What is their least favorite activity to do? Really thinking in terms of a dog that's a family member for our dog, that's an ambassador for our family. What attributes does that dog need? And what attributes do we absolutely need to avoid, right? If I have a grabby toddler, which by the way is totally normal and typical, it's how they're supposed to be, then a resource guarder is going to be a much more difficult situation. And I'm going to have a lot more management. It's going to be a little bit dicier. I'm going to have to watch more than the dog who literally is like the Omega dog who's like, you can take the steak right out of my mouth. I don't care. So there's a real magic with adult dogs of figuring out who they are. And they're pretty upfront about it. You're going to have hiccups. Like they might have fallen back on house training, or you might have some medical stuff you need to run down. But for me, that's always like a really small price to pay for a dog who knows themselves and is really transparent about it.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, I think where we get stuck on the age of a senior dog is, which makes me really crazy, is the dog food companies who have made the senior dog younger and younger so people will buy the more expensive food. Well, let's figure out what kind of dog it is and what the actual age of it is and what is its potential, what is its ability. Do you want a dog that can do that'll chase a tennis ball every 3 seconds? Do you want a dog that'll go fishing with you, hiking, or just watch a movie with you? It's There are so many amazing dogs out there, but I want to really stress that a a shelter is not the greatest place to find one because they don't do the vetting. They don't do the socializing like these rescues do. Like they will keep them in a foster home so they can see, do they jump on the furniture? Do they chew the legs of the dining room table? Do they and the potty training thing that sometimes gets askew because they have to get used to where the door is. And did they live in a house where there were a lot of male dogs that marked everything? Was there not a doggy door? That you got to figure out where their weaknesses are, and are you willing to work with it, not just return it in 2 days? Um, I had a woman that adopted a senior cat, and she returned it because it didn't meow enough. And I was like, you know what? I will give you one of mine that never shuts up. So, it's really, it's somebody that just really has a passion for the dog itself to find what will fit you, your lifestyle. I think about the animals that live in the big cities that you have to come down 50 floors and then try to find some place for them to walk where they can actually lift their leg on something or potty. What is your lifestyle? Let's be basic. What is your lifestyle? And what will fit, and are you willing to take on some medical bills, pet food, walking, exercise? You don't just get a dog and plop it in your living room.
Well, and again, like some dogs are like, yes, I want to go through for 3 walks a day, or 3 runs a day, or a sniffari for 3 hours a day. There are also the dogs who are like, I reside on the sofa. My job is to get cuddles and snacks, right?
Yeah.
So you might have the household that the cuddles and snacks dog is perfect because your 3.2 children are readers and they're quiet. No one ever runs in your house. The dog just wants to sidle up next to somebody and, have a book read to them or play Candyland together. Then there are the dogs who are like, let's go. Let's have a party. We got to go do all the things. And those dogs, in many cases, will really enjoy an active household. I mean, we have a Jack Russell Terrier who is 15 years old. He still wants to go run and jump and play. He can't hear, but he will totally play with kids. He delights in them. He will chase the tennis ball. When he gets tired, he will go get in the kiddie pool by himself and cool off and rest, and then go and lay in the sunshine and let himself dry. Like, I'd have no problem whatsoever placing him in a home with kids, with the exception that he is a level 7 resource guarder. Right.
Mm.
So he couldn't be with young children who are grabby because that's a sensitivity he has. Now, does he use any bite force? No. But if someone didn't understand that behavior, didn't understand that resource guarding is is a behavior that when you punish it, it gets bigger. Um, that's how this dog got into the mischief he got into, was just a miscommunication. So he doesn't bite hard anymore over resource guarding, but he will do something dumb where maybe he has something that I don't even realize he has something that's a resource that he considers a resource because maybe he's laying on it. I joke that he's like a dragon sitting on his hoard, and you don't always know that he's got something precious up under there. Um, Again, like there are lots of dogs that we don't have grabby kids. Like we've got kids who don't do that. So living with a dog with that sensitivity is not an issue. It's really
Mhm.
kind of magic. And when you get a senior dog, an adult dog that is well behaved, well trained, happy, stable, guess what? When you get that younger dog, often that dog helps
Mhm.
because they are helping that puppy, that young dog, to learn how to dog the way they dog.
And just this is going to sound really weird to people, but greyhounds, we all think that, oh, they're just running, running, running. They are the fastest couch potato you'll ever own. Um, and so if you want a specific dog, look for that breed rescue because they specialize in those breeds. And we have a greyhound rescue here, and I pet sat for one of them and for one of the gals. They have 3 couches in their living room. It's like, this is a little weird. She goes, well, you don't get one. The dogs those are their couches. So when I pet sat, I had to sit on the floor to watch TV because these things, all they do is sleep. And they're not looking to go for a 5-mile run. They just want to eat and sleep and be your couch potato. So it's really, what are you looking for? I love dachshunds. I just love them. And so I just happened to find Kelly last year, whose mom had just died. And it just depends on what is in your brain as your perfect dog. But if I mean, with all the seniors that we have found, we weren't looking for that breed, but we've had a McNab who just fell in love with my husband. Then we had, and they all fall in love with him. And he's the one that says, I don't want a dog. And I think that's why they gravitate toward him. Um, then we got a pit bull Staffordshire Terrier. Um, then she had like white shepherd and yellow lab, so she looked like a yellow lab. We've had a couple of years ago we found a Chinese I guess went blank,
The
the
Chinese
hairless.
crested.
Yes, hairless. She was amazing. I've never had one before, but oh my God, she just loved to cuddle. And then we had a Chow Golden Retriever that we called Uncle Nanny Care Bear because I have the greatest picture of him nannying our foster kittens that we had 15 years ago. And then the very first one was Reckless. He was a giant Schnauzer Airedale. What a gentleman. Oh my gosh. We have just It wasn't a dog we were looking for. It just happened. But you can find these if you go to the smaller rescues or the breed rescues because they know what this dog is like.
Right.
They
A
vet
dog that's
them.
been in foster many times, we get a lot of data about that dog's likes and dislikes. I often tell people to offer to foster, right?
Yes.
If they're thinking like we might want to add a dog to the household, we don't know if we're ready yet. I'm like, well, then foster, because the point of fostering is that that dog will move on to another situation. Now, if you find your heart dog, great. But I mean, Mr. Rew You may not have recognized him as Prince Charming immediately. He might have been, a hair tall or a hair short, or maybe he had dark hair instead of blonde hair, or vice versa. Like the attributes of what Prince Charming or Princess Charming means to us has less to do with what it looks like and what the individual looks like. It's more the attributes of their character, their interests, the things they like, their sensitivities, their virtues. The same is kind of true with our dogs, that finding
Yeah.
that magic match is more like matchmaking. And so
Yeah.
really figuring out what you want and need in a dog and then searching for dogs that have those qualities. You may find it in a Westie, you might find it in a golden retriever. You just don't know. So, um,
Well, and then
in
I,
some
I I hear people say, "Oh, my kids are so afraid of dogs." It's like, well, something happened, or they were just never educated. So maybe visit the rescues, volunteer with the rescues just to get used to what dogs do and how they bark and how they run around. I mean, when this gal does the Chihuahua rescue, she has this big fenced in area at one of the PetSmarts, and all the chihuahuas run around, and people will stand outside and just watch, and you'll hear people say, "Can I come in and visit that one?" And so it would get the kids used to what is happening. So maybe if it was at a park or on a walk or something where they were scared of one, they could see that they're not all like that. And then when I rename the book, they can see how dogs communicate. Um,
right.
uh,
If your child is tactily sensitive about anything, a Newfoundland or a bloodhound that's gonna drool all the time may not be the greatest choice. Um, the if we have a child or a member of the family who's sound sensitive, a hound other than a sight hound may not be a great choice. But lots of whippets, you never ever hear them bark, right?
mhm,
So I think sometimes people are like, well, I care whether or not it sheds. Okay, that can be one of the criteria, but I try to love people enough to say that's not the only criteria, right? There are lots of breeds that don't shed. There's also lots of robot vacuum cleaners. So there are lots of ways to finding the right dog is worth investing time and energy. And I will say this until the day I die. If a family member is afraid of dogs, work through that first. Do
yes.
not try to work through it by bringing a dog home. It
Mm,
I have never seen it work well. Maybe there's somebody out there, you might be the magic family that's worked, but the vast majority of the time, we end up with a really awful situation where people and dogs don't deserve to be afraid in their own homes. Like that's
mhm,
not fair. The same way that if my in-laws are afraid of dogs or have a cultural reason that they don't like dogs, they think dogs are dirty, I am not taking my dog to their house. And when they come to visit, I am going to board my dog somewhere else.
mhm,
I am going to honor their sensitivity the same way that if I had an alcoholic over for dinner, I'm not going to serve drinks. I'm not going to
mhm,
serve wine and beer and whiskey and whatever their thing is. Or if someone has I have a seafood allergy. My friends are not going to invite me to go out to dinner at a seafood restaurant because there's nothing for me to eat. And even if I could eat it, it's probably been prepared close enough to the seafood that it's going to be a problem.
yeah,
So the, we just I think sometimes families need support from trainer type people, dog aficionados to say, we have work. Yes. And like, yes, I hear you that you have a dog shaped hole in your heart. But your child who had a scary situation, maybe it was as simple as a dog ran up and startled them on a playground one day. We want to really help the child overcome that. Uh, and find a dog that's not going to bump up against all those sensitivities. And that's where puppies can be a really bad choice. An adult dog that is a rug laying next to the fireplace, watching the children play is a wonderful choice. It's not going to bang into your child and rush up to them and scare them. So really I think sometimes trainers could really bless the world by being advocates for the family we have and helping them begin that really true love affair. And often that is a senior dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do believe in checklists. My husband thinks they're a waste of paper, but I think if you made a checklist of what you're looking for and what does the hole in your heart look like, what does it want to be filled with? I mean, I've made a checklist. We're looking for a new house, and we have this checklist that our realtor was just shocked at. But it's all the things that they have to check all the boxes, or it's not what we need. And it's the same with picking a dog, picking a dog trainer. But you have to know what you're getting or what you're looking for before you just go grab one out of the pound and say, this is Spot. He's our new dog. Because it just doesn't, like you said, it doesn't work. And they usually become victims of the system, and they're gonna be it's like recidivism in prisons. They're just gonna keep going around and around. We have one rescue here that actually takes all of the dogs that have had a problem in society from all the other rescues, and they rehab them and they train them and they check what their goods and bads are, what are their habits, all of those things, so that they don't become victims. We fostered a litter of puppies for them back, I think it was 2014, because they were having a fire issue out in the area, but we fostered them. But she likes to keep them so that the puppies don't end up back in the system, because it can be genetic. It can be because they've been abused or mishandled, or mom had behavior issues. She didn't want the puppies to go back into the system. And it's just awesome. If you're willing to put that kind of work into it. You do it when you go to a restaurant, you pick what you want, or you do it when you're buying a car, or like me, buying a house. So why not do it?
And if you're allergic to tomatoes, or you just think tomatoes are gross, you don't like them, and the dish has tomatoes, and you say to the wait staff, "Can they do that without tomatoes?" And they go, "No, it comes with it automatically." Don't get that. Right? Like, it's a matchmaking. Like, I love that ASPCA Pro has the Meet Your Match program as well as the Safer program, where it's two separate assessments to really help families go, okay, is the busy bee a good fit for our family? Because there is a good fit for the busy bee dog. It just needs a busy bee family, a family that can't accommodate that much exercise or that much interaction. It's not a great fit. It doesn't mean that the busy bee is bad or that the family's bad. It just means that these are matches worth making beautifully.
Yep. It really is. And you do have to put some work into it. And
sadly, some rescues and shelters really just are about placing the animals. They're not about finding the right placement.
Right. It's about number.
In and out. Right. And so in many cases, and we have talked on this podcast before, sometimes no kill has created situations where dogs that ought not be placed in families are put in those situations because the shelter just doesn't know what to do with them, right? If they're like, no, 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 we're not ever gonna, like, they have to be careful that we're placing healthy adoptable dogs. Like, this is a marriage between all of the different pieces, right? The shelter, the rescue has to understand and invest in the dogs they have, make sure that those dogs are safe, appropriate dogs for our community. And our families need to be crystal clear that dogs are not infinitely adjustable. The same way you and I are short, you don't get to be mad at me for being only 5'3". Like, I'm not going to get taller, right?
Mm-mm.
And sometimes people want to take the border collie out of the border collie. And that I'm like, okay, I know they're striking. If you wanted a couch potato border collie, then we needed to go find a couch potato border collie, not expect a border collie puppy to be a couch potato. So if there was one tip that you could give a family who's thinking about a senior dog or thinking about adding a dog to their home, what would that tip be?
Make a checklist and be respectful of not knowing the past of this dog, but giving it a chance for a great future. Um, it's like they it's like a person that can't remember their past. But dogs don't forget a lot of things. And it's I don't know what that memory is, but there could be something that scares them and we don't know why. But it's it's respecting that they did have a past and we can't change it, but we can make their future better.
Well, and they can really make our future better too, right?
Oh,
Your
amazing.
goal is to adopt your new best friend. So, we all want to work toward that. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and talking about senior dog adoption. Uh, at some point, I'll have you on again to talk about planning for um, all the things that can happen that end up with dogs ending up in the shelter. Uh, but and if you haven't listened to Peggy's podcast on her dog safety and relationship building activity
Yeah,
book,
I'm good at that.
please please go listen to that episode and get your copy of her book and cross out the dog bite prevention piece if that's at the top. It'll start a conversation with someone you give it to. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for making time for us today, Peggy.
All right. You have a great day and thank you. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for spending part of your precious day with us. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, rate, subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at yourfamilydogpodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you soon.